Dang it. Well, we got the Milwaukee motor apart, and there's a lot of good news and there's some bad news. And the bad news isn't really even that bad. Let's go through the good news first. First of all, as you saw in a previous clip, we did a cylinder leakage test and ran that again, and we found that it pretty much reinforced the findings that we found the first time, or actually the second time through. The first time through we had too much junk between the valves and the seats for it to be meaningful. But after we removed the debris from between the valves and the seats, we found that all of the cylinders were between 88 and 98%, which is within what you'd like to see, about 10%. That's a little outside of 10%, but we'll take it. But that one outlier that was at 65, and in consultation with a couple of guys whose opinion I trust, they are reasonably confident that as we run it, the rings in that cylinder will become unstuck, and that road trip we're going to take is a perfect opportunity for that to happen. The cam boxes, cams, tappets, those all look excellent. The crankshaft, as you can see right here, the crankshaft is in excellent condition size-wise. It appears to be almost like a new crank, so it's that's encouraging. The chain tensioner that we see right here, while it isn't new, which I had thought that it was, we can see that we've got some wear here, these little grooves that you see. Okay. While it is not exactly new, it's new enough so that when I was able to, or when I attempted to latch it, it would actually latch, which what that means is it is frozen in this position right here so that you take the tension off of the chain so that you can get the cam sprockets loose and so forth. Usually, when you do that, they look like this. So that's a good thing, because these things, they're worth $310 or so new, so that's a very good thing. I also took a preliminary look at the oil pump, and that appears to be in really, really good shape. Now, that's kind of in conflict with the sludge and other crap that I found in the engine that would indicate that the previous owner or the previous person that ran the car got their money's worth out of the last few oil changes. The pump and the other things related to the oil were not in that bad a shape, crankshaft being principal among them. So it's very, very good. In fact, you can see down below here, we've got a little bit of oil still draining out of the engine. If you were actually able to see that, you would not be impressed. Okay, the bad news. Well, it's not really bad news. It's just kind of a interesting detail. The camshafts were 10 degrees retarded. Well, how do you do that? Because, well, you've got a tool that you can use to make sure they're timed properly, but you have to have the crankshaft in the proper position, cylinder or piston A1 at top dead center when you do it. Well, there was no timing index on the bottom of the crankcase that you use to time the engine and the other events. So there was no way that could have been timed properly, and also the engine, the ignition could not have been timed properly, so it would have been interesting to see how that thing ran with the camshafts retarded that far. The vacuum advance is leaking. Not a big deal. Those are made new, or you can have them rebuilt, but it's not cheap. It's about $75 to $100 to have that done. I think I have another one around here that's workable. The really big thing was that the cleanup of the block was really, really difficult because of the fact that, particularly down through here from the middle of the crankshaft on down, it was just baked on really, really hard. And it actually took a die grinder with a wire brush on it to get most of that off. At that point, it's a lot less about hygiene and a lot more about aesthetics. So you can see that I didn't get all of it off, but anything that had the potential to come loose and somehow find its way in the engine, both outside and in the engine, I was able to get out, clean up. And that brings up a point. When you're doing the internal cleaning on these engines, it's really, really important when you start to disturb all that stuff that's in there, that once you've committed yourself to that, you get it all. Because what you don't want to do is just disturb a lot of stuff that isn't removed, which can end up causing a problem for your bearings and piston skirts and rings and all that sort of thing. So maybe controversial for me to say this, but you know what? If you're not going to be committed to doing it right, it's almost better not to do it at all. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to start putting this thing back together. And what that involves, first of all, is that we're going to flip this thing over and we're going to put the crankshaft in it, which would include the bearings and reattaching the connecting rods to the crankshaft. And as you can see over here, we've got everything laid out. We've got our second best set of used bearings. You can see that they are still in really, really good shape. Those are the mains. The rods actually have been coated. So those are ready to go in. Incidentally, these are the thrust bearings for the crankshaft that go in beside the cheeks of the crankshaft at bearing number 4. When you're taking your engine apart and you're throwing away old bearings, do not throw these things away, because number 1, they don't wear that much, and number 2, it's really, really hard to find these. You may actually have to look for a used set, so do not throw these away. You can see we've got the main caps all cleaned up, ready to go in, and our connecting rod caps and all the fasteners that we're going to need to put most of this long block together, all cleaned up and ready to go in. So, time to get busy.